I started this video conferencing back, and I figured it out almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago for ministerial classes. And thank God the technology and the computers and the speed of the internet and the software, anybody know about software, all came together. And so now we get to bring this in a nice live form. So it's really wonderful, and it's kind of exciting for me. I've had some. One thing I do in my life is I'm on a board where we give money to churches, and Dallas Center for Spiritual Living put in a request for a grant for technology, about $10,000. Well, they were one of my first campuses that I set up, and the interesting part about that is, back then, they couldn't get it to work. They couldn't get it to 20 years ago. Is it right? Oh God, time is going by so fast. Anyway, couldn't get it to work, but then they want $10,000. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? Well, they finally got it to work, but you know what made them work? One word. COVID. COVID made them put it together, made it all come together. And now they're taking the equipment they have, going to create classrooms, just like this, so they can bring people in from Dallas and around their area, and then get better equipment for their Sunday service. And Reverend Petra is I have great admiration for her. She's a dynamic woman. All right, so we're here to talk about boundaries. Yay. Anybody have any issues with boundaries?
Sure.
Raise your hand. Okay, good. Good, I'm not alone. So we have a lot going on with boundaries, and I'm going to try today to take the idea of boundaries being walls or defensiveness or limiting us to maybe doing it a different way, looking at it a different way, so that we embrace boundaries as a good thing opposed to it being hard. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes boundaries feel really hard. I can remember when somebody did a boundary on me and it was not very pleasant. It made me cry. So we're going to do that. So I'm going to start out with a couple of quotes, and then I'm going to talk about the quotes, because I think it's important that you understand the depth of the work that we do here is not just surface, let me give you an answer. It's about how does this apply to you. So as I'm talking about me, I want you to think about what is going on in my life. What is going on in my life? So here are the quotes. And we're going to take the first one. The first one on the right side says, boundaries are the lines where we stop being invisible. Who's read Women Who Run with the Wolves? Great book. If you've never read it, it's good for men and for women. It is a wonderful book. But let me say that again. Boundaries are the lines we stop being invisible. And I thought about that, and what does that really mean? Well, here's some things that I came up with, because I know that when I finally set a boundary, something happens to me inside. And something happens to all of us inside when we set a boundary. The first one is, it's where we become authentic with ourselves and others. We become authentic. Really, really important. We don't hide anymore. So as I say this, I want you to think about when you've set a boundary and how you kind of went, yeah, I finally told the truth, right? We're no longer afraid of our voice and our heart. I know sometimes when I've tried to set a boundary, I'm always hesitating. But when I realize that I'm setting the boundary not only for them, but for myself, my heart opens up. I start to look at things a different way. And I start to speak truth. Truth to what's going on. Right? You with me, everybody? Okay. It's at that moment when we become invisible that we then realize that we have some power. We're standing our truth. We go, yeah, this is the way. And then the last thing is that we discover clarity. That's what a boundary is creating clarity on what it is we want, maybe want or not want, and then make it happen. The second quote is, you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. Boundaries to me have felt like you're pushing it. You know, that's how I have interpreted up until now. We're pushing the thing, we're pushing the person, we're making them do something we want them to do. But really what we're doing is that we are consciously guiding a situation. So I want you to think of it as though you're, it's like planting seeds. All right, if you're a religious scientist, you understand what that means. Because we plant seeds, we allow it to germinate, and then we see a result. I'm keeping it very, very simple there. But what we end up doing is if we know that we want a certain thing to happen or move things around, is that we have to open it up so that it's everybody in the process feels like, oh, this is a win-win. This is a good thing. This is not a hard thing. And that we can open up to the possibilities. We have a class on Wednesday nights that we just reading a book on possibilities, thinking about a different way to handle a situation than putting ourselves into little boxes. Does anybody know what boxes are? Does anybody here do it? Yeah, we do. We go, this is the only way it's going to be, instead of opening up to the possibilities. And that quote was by Thich Nhat Hanh. Alexis Pauline Grubbs, what a name, boy. Here's another quote, says, "We often think of boundaries as walls, defensive, limited, even selfish. But today I invite us to imagine boundaries not as barriers, but as sacred contours. They're not walls, but a riverbank, guiding the flow of our lives to purpose in nourishing ways." It's guiding us. It's helping us move through different kinds of situations. Some are hard and some are easy. Who has children here? Do you know what I mean by hard and easy, right? Sometimes you got to guide them a little bit. You don't just push them into it because they don't understand. They don't have enough information. Same thing as adults. We don't have enough information. She continues to say, "My love is an ocean, but my path is a river shaped by, and that will heal us if we will let it." Because when we're putting in boundaries, there's some kind of healing that's taking place within ourselves, maybe with the other person, maybe with the situation. So I'm going to approach boundaries a little differently today. And I want you to think of it, I'm going to give you some different words. Is it soft? It's respectful. It's loving. And as we do it, there's forgiveness that goes along the way. And I'm going to give you a personal example of how I've done this just recently. And I didn't think I would be doing it this way, but I did. The thing, though, about speaking up is it takes courage, right? It takes courage to say what needs to be said. It needs to be thoughtful, whatever you take place. We have to have an open heart, and you have to have a willingness, not just on the one person, but on both. So if you have children, how many children are not willing? You know what I mean? They're not really willing sometimes. So you have to approach it a different way. So I'll give you one more quote, then I'll move into my story. It says, "We inherit beliefs and patterns of relationships by watching how the people around us move, who listened to and seen, who is hunted down." In other words, we don't have a manual as a human being, right? We're born, then we're told what to do, right? Yep. And then we kind of go, "Oh, no, I don't know about you, but I went the other direction." And then we choose. But we don't have that manual as we go along. So let me give you it says short story. It's not really short, though. About 10 years ago, I had a falling out with someone I thought was a friend. And when I say this about myself, I want you to think about your own life. Is there somebody, because I'm going to ask you some questions later about this. Is there somebody in your life that you need to do what I did today, as far as forgiveness and creating better boundaries? Anyway, we had a falling out, and in that falling out, it was really hurtful, and they left, and it was empty. So we all know what that's like when somebody just leaves and we don't have any resolution, and we don't know what's going to happen. And so at that time, and I don't do this very often, but when I do it, I make a boundary, and that boundary is for myself. The boundary is to protect me in some cases. Anyway, in this situation it was. And it was to protect me because there was a lot of messy stuff that went down. That wasn't very pretty. And it hurt. Anybody have one of those? It hurts when that happens, right? So when I say approach a boundary from soft and respectful ways, again, I want to repeat, it takes courage, thoughtfulness, an open heart, and willingness. Anyway, years later, and part of my boundary, I'll tell you what my boundary was, I would not talk to this person if they happened to be in that same relationship. I said, I'm done. I am not going to set myself up. I don't trust this other person, and therefore, if they're still in that relationship, I'm not interested. I will just turn away. Okay? That was my protection. Many years later, I'm trying to think how many years it was. It was at least 4 or 5 years later. I get a phone call, and it's this person. And I was kind of hesitant taking that call, but it was an opening. Now, I talked about courage. It took them a lot of courage to make that phone call to talk. And then we had a further talk later about more things and unveiled a lot of the old stuff, a lot of apologies, a lot of things that needed to be said to heal the relationship. The thing is for both of us, we had to step into what I call stepping into trust of each other. Now I say that, now this is a difficult one. You may have easy boundaries here, but on this one, we both had wounded each other's hearts. So we had to move into this a little differently. And so we both tried to heal. I like to use the word salve. Put salve over the wound and start to let it heal. Anyway, as years passed, they ended up calling more often. And one time they came to San Diego and I had a one-to-one with them. They were really working to repair this relationship. But again, the boundaries had to be there. Because for me, I needed to protect myself. Especially as a minister, one of the things that I'm always trying to do is make sure I'm clean. I'm clean and I'm not holding things back. Or I'm protecting, in a way, those people that I love, all of you. So, and this happened to be around it wasn't about the church, it was about them and their activities around the church. Anyway, so they came, we talked, I saw them, said goodbye, few more years go by. But in between, we're calling each other. We're just kind of moving the gauge a little farther to the I love you, I'm going to be okay. But here's the things that I had to do for me. And I say this because I want you to look at when you have to do a difficult thing like this, what do you do for yourself? Number one, I had to be safe. I had to feel safe personally inside. I had to ask questions that were never answered. Okay? I had to trust them again. I trust me again. Can I manage through this and still be centered on the good that can come from this? And I had to change a pattern. My pattern I got from my grandmother. And my grandmother, bless her heart, and I can still remember these things she did. And I loved my grandmother. She brought me up. She taught me a lot. She gave me values. But one of the cute things that she used to do is if somebody embarrassed her, or if somebody was not nice to her, she would turn her back from them, and she would never speak to them again. Anybody have a grandma like that? Yeah. And that was back in the 60s, 70s, and it's like, oh. And so somehow I adapted my life to do that with people that would hurt me. I just I'm not going to do this. And I decided this time not to do that. I changed my pattern. And that's the difficult thing. When we have a pattern and it affects a boundary, we have to kind of look at this a whole different way. We have to open up to healing those things. We have to open up to knowing that Spirit is right there in the middle of all of this, and that we're going to be okay. So I'll report back to you. Last month, or what was it, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, I went to Minneapolis and had a meeting with this person, in addition to some other work I was doing up there. And They picked me up at midnight, and we spoke till 4 o'clock in the morning. Working it. Working that boundary. Working that how do I trust you again? Asking more questions. And then eventually she drove me to Unity Village, which is in Kansas City, which was a 5-hour drive. Talked a bunch more, and finally said, can we just let go of the old? Can we let it go? So we decided to let it go and create a new relationship.
Nice.
Yeah. That's not something that always happens, but it's something that we can do. And I say, give you my own truth, because I hope that you have one of those in your life that you want to make that happen to. And it is possible. So I don't want you to be afraid of it, but listen to yourself. Ask yourself, what is it that I need? The other thing about boundaries is that we have to be authentic. If you trust yourself and you trust someone else, we need to know that each person is authentic about who they are. Prentice says this. She says, our authentic selves aren't perfect or performed. It's an achievement when we stop trying so hard to be who we think we should be. Being authentic is really important. And then Ernest Holmes says, to assert our individuality is to rise above the law of averages into more highly specialized use of the law. What that means really is that we trust. We trust we are being guided by a divine essence that says, move out into the world. I love going into situations and saying things that people don't want to say. It's like I break it open. Breaking open, knowing that I'm being guided, or as I've said up here before, my heart is pounding so hard I have to say it, right? So I'm going to introduce you to a new word. Now, it may not be new to you, but it was new to me. It's called generative. Do you know what that means? Okay. Definition of generative is having the power or function of generating or originating, producing or reproducing. And the same author said, generative boundaries are what allows us to express that individuality, to be unapologetically ourselves without abandoning our connection. They are the sacred yes to self and yes to others, but not at the cost of either. I look at this as the conscious, loving way to set boundaries. How does it apply to both? It's not just what you want. It's how do we make, especially in the world today, how do we make it so everybody wins, right? Yep. We have to look at it more broadly. We can't be confined to just what we see, but to open up the conversations and do it in a way that's loving. Do it in a way that everybody wins, or as much as possible. In fact, my example of this is Ohm. I know there are quite a few new people here, but at this location, I asked for us all to be authentic. When I introduced, in fact, there was a lady that's coming back next week. She just got here last night. I said, this is a loving community. And I say that because we don't have any politics here. You know why? Because we're authentic. If you don't like, and I'll be real honest, if you don't like something here, you can take me in the back room. Come on, laugh, you guys. Too serious. You can talk to me about it. It's about being authentic about it, not being afraid to say, and I've had many conversations back there where I forgot something. And I just go, okay. And I just keep working at it. But there's no politics. We're courteous to each other. I walk in and everybody runs to my car to help me. You know, they're all here. We're here to serve each other. I look at us and I say, we're problem solvers instead of blamers. Right? So when I see Gio's, all of his bowls on the floor, I go, well, there's a problem. I got to fix that one. So we made a home for him. Right, Gio? He played bowls a couple weeks ago. We trust each other. That's really important. When you're authentic, you can trust your friend. You can trust each other. And I think we laughed a lot more. You guys haven't laughed today, though. I'm kind of worried about you. You know what I mean? I'm usually a little more funny, I think. This is a tough topic. But the thing is, boundaries can have one thing or they can come another way. Let me give you what boundaries really are and what they are not. And I put this up here because I think sometimes we need to read it, hear it, and see it. They're not ultimatums. I'll tell you about an example and I'll give you more. Well, actually, we'll just go through this and I'll give you the example. They're not punishments. They're not selfish. Sounds like you're getting married, right? They're not sacred tools for maintaining the integrity of our energy, our hearts, and our purpose. I can remember, in fact, I just told this. I saw Reverend Sharon Hudson, and it was in ministerial school, and I was creating this video conferencing, and I was so excited about doing it because back then, 20 years ago, you couldn't do this, right? Do you remember? I started with a 286 computer. Anybody know what that is?
Yep, I do.
Okay. 286, that means slow. Dial-up internet.
That's right.
Slow. And then I said to her, that was part of the problem. The other problem is trying to match the cables. Back then, they were 9-pin, single pin, 4-pin. I could go on and on and on about this. Anyway, I know. Anyway, but I had to finish a class, which was, what would this video conferencing look like in the future? And so I did, and in my excitement, I accidentally wrote an email to somebody that was donating money, said, I'm so excited about this, because now the deans are going to be able to talk to each other. My dean didn't like that. I crossed a boundary. You know what I'm talking about. And you know what happened? She brought me in the office, and I thought I was going to lose it. And I cried. It was the wrong way to cross that boundary. She just didn't have enough information. It was my heart that was speaking. Anyway, we ended up resolving it after I cried. And, yeah, you're laughing because I know you know what I'm talking about. It was tough back in those days. We did things differently then. That's why I want to talk about boundaries as being softer now. We don't have to be We have to be open and honest and love each other and try and find those words to support each other, to move past what may be a boundary or maybe one we have to create. Prentice says this. She says, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. In other words, we're all okay. We're not worried about it. And then Ernest Holmes says, I do not think that we should make such claims to divinity that we forget we are human. Our experience is filled with laughter and tears, and sometimes fall into the depths of despair. I look at this and I go, we're human. I may be 6 inches taller up here, guys, but I'm just like you. I'm just like you. I may know something more than you do, but you know something more than I do. And therefore, it's important that we find our commonalities. I love it that we're full here today. I've been talking about us being in this place a year ago, November, because we need each other. Especially now, we need each other during these times to come together, to understand life, to figure it out, to work together, and to have some tools. Am I going crazy here? Is this true? So one of the things that we do, a lot of you are new here, I want you to know every single night of the week we have something going on here. Just to help. Just to help. And if you don't have the money, I don't care, show up. It's not about money. It's about how do we help each other grow? How do we help each other stay together? How do we help each other, as a community? They call it the ground of holy relationships. How do we create that holy relationship? Take a breath, everybody. Let it out. It's a lot, huh? Yep. It's a lot. Have you thought of somebody you want to work with? Not me, okay. I go to the back room. What did you say?
It's crowded back there.
It's crowded back there, yeah. It's only one light, so it's mine. No, I'm just kidding.
Do a lot of therapy.
So I want you to think of I have 3 questions. I said I would ask you questions. I want you to think about this, or maybe someone you want to work on, okay? Work with, not on, with. And where have you been overextended? Where have you given and given and given and given and given, and maybe you don't see it coming back? I'm in that place now. I want equanimity, so that it's a give and receive, you know. Where have you been withholding? And where are your edges for clarity? Now maybe you don't know right now, but I want you just to think about this. Every person that you know is valuable in some way. And sometimes the value is something you don't need to be around. I'll tell you one more quick story. I wasn't going to tell you this, but it came to my mind. I had an individual that I accidentally hurt. I accidentally hurt them, and I realized it the moment I said it. And they realized it too. But then they came at me. And then, as I was working out in the world, they would call me and harass me. And I had to set a boundary. And the boundary was, I have apologized 100 times. I have apologized. And I would say that at least 10 times in this phone call. And finally I said, and now I'm going to hang up. And when I hang up, I want you to know I have apologized enough. And I wish you well. And I clicked it. Sometimes you have to do that too. That's a boundary. It's not a bad thing. It just is. And you have to know when that's necessary. So have you learned enough about boundaries today?
Yep.
Okay. I'll stop then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Still love you.
This is why I love you guys. I can take it. So I'm going to read a passage, and I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And then I'll take us into prayer, and we'll have James come back. On the banks of a river, I surrendered to the boundaries that the land is teaching. Yes, I surrendered to the demands of my dreams for you and for myself, which is love, which is abundant rest, which is a visionary world that looks so much like a dream, but when you close one eye, the new world opens. When you open up to this closed to the edge, when you're that close to the edge, land holds you and the water moves around you. What you thought was closed off to the openness like possibilities, and the danger you thought would swallow you and everyone you loved instead reclarifies who you are, updates your dream, and awaits to wake you to a new purpose. If I can learn to sleep, it is because my dreams are yours, and for you and of us. It is because my love is an ocean, but my path is a river shaped by, and that will heal us if we will let it. And so as I take us into prayer, what I know for all of us right here, right now, is that Divine has brought us here to know this truth about ourselves, that we are capable, that we know that the Divine moves through our life, even in complicated situations, and that we are never alone. And so I bless each of us that have heard some piece of this that made sense and brought it into their heart to take it out into the world and to give it away. And so I bless each of you as you do the work in your own life to know that the Divine moves through you in a blessed, wonderful way, and that you are always safe, that it takes courage to be who you are. It takes courage to do the work that we do, and it takes love to open up. For that, I am simply grateful for this time, for each of you, for the work that we do here, and for the love that we share as one. And for that, I say thank you, God, and join me in saying, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.